Joining us right now, Charles Payne. You know him as host of Making Money with Charles Payne, which airs every day on Fox Business, and author of Unstoppable Prosperity. He's given us some of his time before he goes on air for his own show on Fox Business. Charles, always good to talk with you, my friend.
It's always great to be on with you as well, Dana. Thank you.
Of course. That's how I keep presenting it to people. I mean, you have a choice of possibly, which looks like we could have another lockdown, or a way to, adapt and figure out how to get along with day-to-day life without shutting down our economy again with this virus. And the president he's accurately quoting Joe Biden here. We played audio earlier of Pete Buttigieg, who was talking about how this would be on the table. What does that look like? I mean, what if we had another lockdown like that?
Boy.
What would that look like, Charles?
It would be devastating. It really would be. It would be economically devastating. If you look at the depth of what we went through, the sharpness of that recession, the fastest bear market in stock market history, and then the damage, the long-term structural damage of businesses that will never come back, particularly the small businesses, the restaurants and those things, they're gone. They're done. And then, it's interesting because on Friday, the University of Michigan does a great consumer sentiment survey. They've been doing it for years. And that was one thing that they pointed out. There was a special question about this. And three things people worry about when it comes to COVID-19: their health, their finance, and then their mental health. Mental health has rocketed up in terms of importance and worry. So there's a financial component to this, but more Americans are worried now about the isolation component of it and everything that brings with it. So we have to find a way to live with it. And even in Europe, I know the headlines are saying lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. But if you listen and you read what Angela Merkel said, if you look at Emmanuel Macron, they're saying these aren't full lockdowns. Schools are open. We want factory workers to go to work. We want these construction workers to go to work. It's not the March and April lockdowns, although obviously they've tightened up the restrictions more than they were before.
Right.
But every world leader, more and more scientists, and just about every person listening to this show knows there are devastating consequences for the kind of lockdown we went through in the beginning.
Yeah. Nancy Pelosi said that it was the CARES Act, as though they were taking credit, Democrats were taking credit, that is to be solely credited with the huge boom that we saw this last quarter that came out last week, GDP growth. What is your response to that? Because I feel like if we did not have a healthy economy because of the Trump tax cuts and other positions taken before this, it would have been a lot worse. But was she correct?
The CARES Act helped in the beginning, but let's not forget the money ran out on July 31st, right? I mean, President Trump found some cash for certain states, and initially a lot of blue states like New York didn't even want that, which was nuts. But we first and foremost, I applaud the American people. Just we had a juggernaut of an economy in February. If you look at everything, and I look at every single thing, it was a pure juggernaut in the economy. And so that's part of it. That momentum, even though it gets hammered, is still back there. The American spirit, American ingenuity, people wanting to get to work, people wanting to live through all of this. Certainly the Federal Reserve deserves a ton of credit. They've moved in quickly. And the CARES Act helped. But here's the thing with the CARES Act. The vast majority of the money was either spent on bills or saved. So it didn't really go right back into the economy. Now, it will. I think it could. I think next year, whoever's president, Dana, is going to have one heck of an economy because you've got $2.5 trillion in savings versus disposable income, another $2 trillion in stimulus potentially coming. You've got the lowest debt to disposable income ratios in history of our economy. So all of that money that we're talking about, it's out there, but it's really, it still hasn't poured into the economy.
Wow. And I know you have to get going for your show coming up. We're talking with Charles Payne, who is host of Making Money with Charles Payne every day on Fox Business, 2 to 3 p.m. Eastern. I saw the story on Facebook, and I've seen screenshots of people sharing this. Facebook's fact checker said that it was false, but PolitiFact actually just looked at it and said, no, Facebook is actually wrong to say it's false. The inheritance tax. Biden, as part of his policy, Charles, is looking to eliminate what Trump had implemented to reduce inheritance taxes. Biden wants to expand it and increase it again. And PolitiFact and Facebook were at odds over this. Talk to us a little bit about this, that stepped up basis and the additional taxation and what effect that would have also.
Well, most of these think tanks have already said that Biden's policies and the promises that he's made will require more taxes. So, the idea that a business tax go from 21 just to 28%, I think that's wrong. I think things like inheritance taxes are low-hanging fruit for that crowd. The progressive crowd, the Bernie Sanders of the world, they hate the notion of the idea that billionaires can pass on their money. But it's not about billionaires, right? It's about the first generation. It's about me, Dana. My grandfather and my grandmother, they lived in a farm in Alabama, and I give them credit because that was at the height of the Ku Klux Klan. They made it through that, but they had no running water, right? So my father fought in Vietnam. He was never the same when he came home. And now me, I had a legitimate shot to make a fair amount of money. I want to be able to pass that on to my heirs. I don't want to give it all back to the government and start from scratch, right? Yeah. It's not about billionaires passing on their money because they have ways of doing that no matter what. It's about the small plumber that just added the third truck to his business and maybe can add another truck, being able to pass that on generation after generation, at least for a couple of them, so that we don't have to worry about the government reshuffling the decks. Let us do it. Let Americans do it. Let us pull ourselves up by the bootstraps and maybe keep a little bit of it.
Yeah, amen to that. Charles Payne, whose show is actually he's going to be on in about 15 minutes here. Yeah, just top of the next hour. Charles, we saw you do it all. You're able to do a radio hit and then run and do a live TV show. God bless you, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
I'll do it anytime. Thank you,
Appreciate that. Thanks, Charles.